"Mom, you'll be much happier in the country," Emily said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She left me at the cabin before I could even protest, waving from the car window as if she were dropping off a stranger instead of her own mother. The engine faded down the dirt road, and the silence that followed pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. For 3 weeks, I lived alone, abandoned after my husband's funeral, with no neighbors, no phone signal, and only the whisper of trees for company. I thought grief had exhausted me, that nothing could shock me anymore. Until yesterday. I forced open the lock on the cabin's mysterious third room. My scream tore through the quiet, sending birds scattering from the nearby forest. The room wasn't dusty or forgotten, it was precise, deliberate. Stacks of documents, detailed maps, aerial photos, and a binder labeled Jonathan Blake filled the space. My hands shook as I flipped it open. Mining reports from 5 years ago detailed gold and silver deposits worth millions, right here on the land where I stood. My late husband had kept it secret, negotiating quietly with a mining company while I remained in the dark. The last correspondence revealed he had refused an early offer of $500,000, aiming for far more. Among the documents were emails between Emily and the company, sent just weeks after Jonathan's funeral. She claimed to be the heir and asked about the process for selling the rights, unaware, or perhaps hoping I wouldn't discover, that the sale couldn't happen without my consent. One message made my blood run cold. "If she passes soon, how long until we can proceed?" I sank to the floor, tears of rage streaming down my face. My daughter had orchestrated my isolation to manipulate me, to secure a fortune I had no idea existed. Every visit after the funeral, every smile, every gesture of care had been calculated. Emily and her husband, Brian, had studied my husband's estate with predatory patience, masking greed with affection. Then I found more. A fully charged satellite phone, maps showing a hidden trail to the highway, and supplies meant to last months, not the few weeks they expected me to endure. The phone contained a recording from Jonathan himself, made just before his death. "Catherine, if you're hearing this, I couldn't tell you everything before. Emily knows about the property, but she doesn't know the documents are hidden here. Protect yourself. Mr. Harper, my lawyer, has copies of everything. Trust no one else. Be careful." I held the phone tightly, a mix of grief and determination surging through me. Jonathan had prepared for this, leaving instructions, contacts, and a safety net I hadn't known existed. Mr. Harper, an older man with the calm authority that mirrored my husband's, was my next call. "Mrs. Carter." His voice was steady, relieved. "Are you safe at the cabin?" "Stay put. I'll be there tomorrow with everything you need." Sleep eluded me that night. I walked through the cabin, examining every corner, understanding for the first time why Emily had insisted I come here. She hadn't wanted me to heal, she wanted me gone. Alone, vulnerable, powerless. She had underestimated me. By dawn, I had made a decision. I would not be a victim. I would reclaim my life and turn the tables. When Mr. Harper arrived at 10, he stepped out of his SUV with a worn leather briefcase and a steady determination. He shook his head at the sight of Emily's betrayal, muttering something about ungrateful children. "Mrs. Carter," he said, approaching with warm authority. "Jonathan planned carefully, but I never imagined we'd meet like this. We have work to do, and will ensure she never succeeds." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control. The game had begun, and this time, I would win. "Mom, I'll be there soon," Emily said over the phone, her voice carefully sweet. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering, and repeated my practiced line, voice trembling with feigned weakness. "Emily, I don't think I can make it through the night. I feel terrible. Please, you have to come." When Mr. Harper arrived, he settled at the tiny kitchen table, placing a neat stack of documents in front of me. The morning sunlight fell across the papers, revealing evidence that would alter everything I thought I knew. Your husband was a remarkable man, Mr. Harper began, methodically spreading the files. 6 months before his death, Jonathan suspected your daughter's intentions and asked me to investigate discreetly. What we uncovered was far worse than even he imagined. He handed me a folder. I opened it to find photographs showing Emily and Brian entering the offices of a mining company on days they had claimed to be visiting me, days when I was left alone, grieving. The photos captured smiles, handshakes, and even signatures on documents. In one, Brian carried a bottle of champagne as though celebrating a private victory. The image burned into my mind. The day after Jonathan's funeral, while I had been broken with grief, they were toasting the future they expected to inherit. Mr. Harper didn't stop there. He laid out a series of financial documents, mounting credit card debt over $150,000, foreclosure notices, overdue mortgage payments, and even threatening messages Brian had received from unpaid creditors. Emily and Brian were desperate, not just greedy. Their entire plan depended on my absence, on my death, and on no one noticing until it was too late. Jonathan prepared for every possibility, Mr. Harper said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. He asked me to ensure your safety, to protect the inheritance, and to make certain Emily could never benefit if she tried to manipulate or harm you. He also wanted legal consequences if she attempted elder abandonment or fraud. He then produced the real will, hidden from Emily's knowledge after the funeral. In it, Jonathan stipulated that if I were harmed or endangered by Emily, all inheritance would go directly to charities he had chosen. Emily would receive nothing. Beyond that, he had established a trust for my grandson, Leo, ensuring that if Emily were convicted of wrongdoing, custody and a $500,000 education fund would go to Brian's family. Not a penny would touch her hands. Jonathan had thought of everything. Now for the interesting part, Mr. Harper said with a gleam in his eye. He explained that hidden cameras had been installed in the cabin, documenting every moment of my isolation. Emily's phone conversations with the mining company had been recorded legally. Emily, believes you are helpless and near death. We have an opportunity to confront her with exactly what she's done. The plan was ingenious. I would call Emily, pretending to be weak, terrified, and on the edge of collapse. She would arrive expecting victory, only to be met with legal evidence, Mr. Harper, and the full weight of her deceit. I would have the chance to reclaim control after weeks of helplessness. Mr. Harper went over the smallest details: how to place the recorder, what questions to ask, how to maintain the perfect balance of vulnerability and calculated emotion. There's one more thing, he said. The mining company has made offers up to $4 million for the property rights. Emily probably thinks she's close to riches beyond imagination. When she arrives, she'll believe it's all within her grasp. We'll show her exactly how wrong she is. That night, I rehearsed in front of the mirror. I practiced weak gasps, trembling hands, and tears that were partly real, partly performance. I memorized each document, each photograph, each email detailing her plotting. I visualized the moment Emily stepped through the cabin door, thinking she held power, only to have it stripped away in front of witnesses and undeniable proof. I felt a strange thrill in the knowledge that I would no longer be a victim. The next day, at 2 o'clock sharp, I picked up the satellite phone and dialed Emily. Her voice was clipped, casual, even amused, as though she didn't expect me to have a lifeline to the outside world. "Mom? How did you get a signal?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her tone. I coughed weakly, letting my body language convey every ounce of distress I could muster. "Emily, I can't breathe. My chest hurts, and I haven't eaten in days. Please, you have to come. I'm so scared." I could almost hear her calculating, the shift from amusement to strategy as she whispered to Brian. "We'll come first thing tomorrow." "Stay calm," she finally said. I whispered my fake relief, shaking, but inwardly thrilled at the trap I had set. Every pause, every gasp, every trembling word had been carefully rehearsed. After the call, I checked with Mr. Harper. "Perfect," he said. "We'll be positioned outside when they arrive. Every word she speaks will be captured, and everything she admits will be legally binding." Sleep was impossible. I moved through the cabin, reviewing documents, photographs, and recordings, mentally preparing for the confrontation. I reminded myself that Jonathan had left me everything I needed to protect myself, and now it was my turn to act. By 8 the next morning, the sound of a car on the dirt road jolted my heart, not with fear, but with anticipation. I fixed my hair, paled my cheeks, and set the recorder in my pocket. When Emily and Brian entered, their polished appearances contrasted sharply with their desperation. They had already begun spending, flaunting wealth they believed would soon be theirs. Emily's smile was tight, her concern obvious but hollow. "Mom, you look awful," she said. Her hand brushed my forehead, cold and clinical. I moaned, sat heavily, and allowed the full weight of my performance to settle. "Why didn't you visit like you promised? I've been waiting for you every day." Emily exchanged a subtle glance with Brian before replying, "We've been busy, Mom. I've been handling Dad's affairs." The casual lie slipped easily from her lips, but I noted every inflection, every hesitation. "What kind of affairs?" I asked, feigning confusion. "I thought everything was settled after the funeral." Brian shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the door, as if sensing the trap he hadn't yet realized he was stepping into. Emily, on the other hand, relaxed, believing she faced a dying, helpless mother. "Some complicated things with Dad's properties," she said, sitting beside me. "Nothing you need to worry about, just paperwork and meetings with lawyers." Satisfaction glimmered in her eyes, but it was short-lived. Her entire scheme was about to unravel. I let her words hang, the weight of deceit heavy in the room, knowing that every carefully calculated gesture, every fabricated smile, was about to be exposed. For the first time in weeks, I felt the power shift entirely back into my hands. "Properties? You mean this cabin?" I asked, feigning ignorance, letting my curiosity sound natural. I had to push Emily into revealing exactly what she knew about the value of this land. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, cold and calculated. "Oh, Mom," she said, her tone dripping sweetness, "don't worry about the details. The important thing is that you stay comfortable and calm here while I manage everything." She paused and added casually, almost too casually, "After all, you probably won't need to concern yourself with these matters much longer." A chill ran down my spine, but I forced my face into a mask of confusion. "What do you mean by that, honey? Are you suggesting I might not be around for long?" The words were deliberate, baiting her into a dangerous response. Brian cleared his throat, looking uneasy, but Emily didn't miss a beat. "Mom, let's be realistic. You're 74. You've just lost your husband and now you're alone and unwell. People in your situation don't always bounce back quickly." Her voice carried a hint of cruel condescension. I pressed further, faking panic. "If I'm so unwell, why don't you take me home? Or to a hospital? I don't want to die here alone." Emily's carefully constructed mask faltered for a split second. I caught the glimmer of the calculating mind behind her maternal act. "Mom, moving you would be stressful, and hospitals, they're noisy, full of germs. Here you have peace and fresh air," she said, her tone soft but her eyes hard. "Besides, getting doctors out here would be complicated, expensive." "Expensive for whom?" I asked, pretending not to understand. "I have insurance. I have savings. I don't mind paying whatever it takes to get help." Brian finally spoke, hesitating. "The problem is your location, Mrs. Carter. There's no hospital nearby. Calling an ambulance here would be tricky. His words sounded like a thinly veiled threat. Emily nodded in satisfaction, smug at his reinforcement. Exactly. And honestly, Mom, it's best if you stay put, until nature takes its course. The smile accompanying the words was sharp, cold, and merciless. At that precise moment, I heard footsteps on the porch. Mr. Harper had arrived, perfectly on schedule. Emily and Brian, caught in their own conversation, hadn't noticed a thing. I straightened in my seat, letting my voice shift from weak and trembling to calm and resolute. You know what, Emily? You're right. Nature should take its course. But I'm not talking about me dying. I'm talking about justice. The cabin door swung open, and Mr. Harper entered, followed by 2 police officers. Emily leapt from the sofa, her expression frozen in shock, while Brian stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The room filled with the kind of stunned silence only betrayal and revelation can produce. What's going on? Emily stammered, her voice losing all pretense. Who are you? How did you get here? I'm Mr. Harper, Jonathan's attorney, he said firmly, setting his briefcase on the table. And these are Officers Garcia and Morales. They've been monitoring this conversation. Brian tried to make a move toward the door, but Officer Garcia raised a hand. No one is leaving until we clarify a few things. Sit down. Emily's face shifted from panic to confusion, to raw terror. Mom, what is all this? I thought you were sick. Oh, I'm very sick, Emily, I said, rising slowly. Sick of the lies, sick of the manipulation, and sick of discovering my own daughter wanted me dead to get an inheritance. I placed the recorder on the table, letting it be seen. Mr. Harper began pulling documents from his briefcase, spreading them on the table like a deliberate reveal. Emily, do you recognize these? He laid out preliminary contracts with North Star Minerals, signed just days after Jonathan's funeral. Emily's face drained of color. That's not. I don't know, she stammered. I picked up a photo. Then explain this. You toasting with champagne in the company's offices, the day after Dad's funeral. While I grieved, believing you were mourning. Brian tried to intervene. This is a setup. You can't prove anything. Emily was just exploring options, family options. Options that included my death, I said sharply, voice growing stronger. I have recordings of your calls, Emily, asking how long the process would take if I passed in the coming months. Mr. Harper activated the device. Emily's voice echoed in the cabin, calculating and cold. The silence that followed crushed the room. Emily collapsed onto the sofa, covering her face. It's not what it sounds like, she whispered. I was just being practical. Practical? I snapped. You brought me to a place with no phone, no neighbors, no help, hoping I'd die alone. That's practical. My voice grew louder, raw with decades of betrayal. I gave you life, Emily. I raised you. I worked my entire life to give you a future. And this is what I get. Emily tried to respond, but Mr. Harper cut her off. You owe over $150,000 in debt, he said, showing credit reports and foreclosure notices. You needed the mining rights money, and fast. Brian muttered, defensive. Everyone has debt. That doesn't mean we wanted her dead. Officer Garcia interjected, holding up his own recorder. 10 minutes ago, you told her it's best to stay here until nature takes its course, knowing she's isolated and vulnerable. Emily's tears no longer moved me. I had seen too much, knew too much. We were desperate, Emily admitted finally. Brian lost his job, and the creditors, they were threatening. When we found out about the mine, we thought it would solve everything. And you never thought to come to me. To ask for help. I asked, each word striking like a hammer. We knew you'd say no, Brian said, finally admitting some truth. You are irresponsible with money, I said, voice trembling with both anger and clarity. But that doesn't justify plotting my death. I turned to Emily. Where is the daughter I raised? The little girl who cared, who cried over a butterfly. When did she disappear? Emily sobbed harder, voice barely audible. I realized. I couldn't wait for natural life to take its course. You're old, you could live another 20 years, too late for us. Officer Morales cleared his throat. Emily Blake, are you admitting to bringing your mother here with intent to endanger her for personal gain? Emily looked between Brian, me, and the officers, the truth dawning on her. We thought, if she felt lonely, maybe her heart would stop. Mr. Harper spoke, precise and firm. You've just confessed to elder endangerment, conspiracy, and negligence. And now, your legal accountability begins. Emily tried to protest, incoherent. Brian paled, realizing the gravity of their actions. I retrieved binders from the secret room, spreading documents on the table. The mining rights are worth $4 million. You were willing to kill for it. Do you know what I'll do with that money? Half will go into an educational trust for Leo, which he will access at 21, if he remains on a good path. The rest goes to organizations protecting seniors from family abuse. Arthur's foresight and love still shield him from your greed. Mr. Harper added the final pieces, restraining orders preventing contact, and temporary custody of Leo granted to Brian's family. Emily screamed, You can't take my son from me. I'm his mother. You planned my death, I replied coldly. You forfeited that right. Officer Garcia signaled for transport. Brian, silent, finally faced reality. Mr. Harper gently asked me if I was ready to give my statement at the station. I'll go, I said, voice steady. This cabin holds nothing for me now, only memories of betrayal. It's time to move forward. Mr. Harper nodded, thoughtful. I've booked a room in town. We'll pack your things and leave when you're ready. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lift, replaced by clarity, justice, and a future finally mine. As I packed the few belongings I had brought to town, Emily's voice carried from the hotel lobby below, desperate and shrill. Mom, please. We can make this right. We'll pay you back. Brian will find work, we can start over. Her words rang hollow to my ears, echoes of a false remorse I had no intention of believing. I paused in the doorway, letting the suitcase rest by my feet. Emily, I said slowly, letting each syllable carry weight, you had 45 years to show me who you really were. It's taken only 3 months for the truth to become painfully clear. Her sobs came then, pleading with the only card she had left. But I'm your daughter. I'm your family. I love you. I shook my head, surprising even myself with the clarity of my response. No, Emily. You stopped being my family the moment you placed my life below your greed. Jonathan was my family. And even in death, he protected me from the person you became. With Mr. Harper beside me, I walked out of the hotel for the first time as free as I had felt in decades. Not joyous, no, joy felt impossible, but a profound peace settled over me, a calm born of finally reclaiming control. Behind me, police vehicles carried Emily and Brian toward a future that would be far harsher than they ever imagined. Her screams, her desperate cries, were swallowed by the roar of engines and the growing distance. Do you feel any regret, Mrs. Carter? Mr. Harper asked quietly as we drove down the dusty road into town. I watched the trees blur past, letting the weight of the past few months sink in. I regret not seeing the signs sooner, I admitted. I regret trusting her when I should have seen the danger. But I do not regret choosing justice over blind maternal love. Mr. Harper gave a small, approving nod. Jonathan would be proud, he said softly. Yes, I whispered, thinking of my late husband. He anticipated this. He knew me well enough to know that, without guidance, I might have protected Emily even at the cost of my own life. Town came into view just as the sun dipped low, bathing streets in gold. The simplicity of everyday life, people walking unhurriedly, children laughing, brought an unexpected, bittersweet comfort. "What now?" I asked as Mr. Harper pulled up in front of the hotel. "Now," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips, "you build a life where no one can manipulate you, harm you, or plan your death for money. And with $4 million and the legal safeguards we're putting in place, your future is completely yours to shape." The hotel room was modest but immaculate, with a view of the town square. That night, for the first time since Jonathan's funeral, I slept uninterrupted, the hum of life outside the window a gentle lullaby. Morning brought a whirlwind of appointments. Over breakfast at the hotel restaurant, Mr. Harper outlined the day. "First, we complete your statement at the police station. Then, we visit the bank to finalize your accounts. And this afternoon, we meet with the district attorney." At the station, recounting everything, the manipulations, the threats, Emily's and Brian's cold scheming, was exhausting but necessary. Detective Harris, a seasoned officer with decades on the force, listened intently. "Mrs. Carter," he said after I finished, "I've seen elder abuse before, but this, premeditated and calculated. It's staggering. The planning, the deception, it's truly chilling." He showed me emails and photos confirming Emily's obsession with timing the mining rights sale around my death. "And what happens to them now?" I asked, my voice cautious. "Serious charges," Detective Harris said. "Elder abandonment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and likely attempted homicide by negligence. Emily could face 10 to 15 years. Brian a bit less. Plea deals are possible, but that would require your agreement." "No deals," I said firmly. "They must face the full consequences." Next, the bank. Mr. Harper had prepared everything to transfer the mining rights into my sole name. The manager, Mr. Peterson, spoke with a mix of respect and nervousness. "Mrs. Carter, for a property of this magnitude, an irrevocable trust is strongly recommended. It ensures protection against future manipulation and guarantees your wishes are followed. Half of the $4 million would fund an educational trust for Leo, my grandson, contingent on his academic performance and no contact with Emily or Brian. The other half would be split between senior protection organizations and my personal fund." Mr. Harper added, "We also need a comprehensive will. Amanda and Brian cannot inherit a single cent under any circumstances." The meeting with District Attorney Reynolds was intense. "This is one of the clearest cases of elder abuse I've ever seen," she said without preamble. "Premeditation, intent, and recorded confessions. They're going to prison for a long time." Emily and Brian had tried to secure defense counsel that morning, but their finances were a barrier. The DA noted, with ironic satisfaction, that the very money they coveted would have paid for a competent defense. Back at the hotel, I sat on the balcony, watching the town slow and steady beneath the sunset. My life had changed entirely. I had wealth, security, and justice, but I had lost Emily forever. The pain was deep, but clarity and control replaced fear and helplessness. Mr. Harper informed me that Leo was now under the care of Brian's parents, Susan and Richard, who had taken every precaution to protect him. Meeting them filled me with cautious hope. Susan, a retired teacher, and Richard, a lifelong mechanic, were kind and principled. Leo, my grandson, ran to me with a hug that melted the tension in my chest. "Grandma Catherine. Are you okay?" he asked, his voice urgent with childlike concern. "I'm fine, my love," I said, holding him tightly. His innocence was a balm I didn't know I needed. Susan and Richard explained the delicate truth to Leo, tailored for his age. "Your parents made very bad choices," Susan said gently. "But you will be safe and loved. Always. How long? He asked, frowning. Many years, until you're grown, I said, softly. But you're not responsible for what they did. You have people who love and protect you. Mr. Harper detailed the legal framework: full custody for Susan and Richard, court-supervised visitation rights for me, and a trust ensuring Leo's future. I made one final stipulation: if Leo ever wanted to see his parents, it would be entirely his choice, fully informed, without pressure. The rest of the morning was lighter. Leo shared stories of school, friends, and a science project about volcanoes. I laughed, enjoying the simple joy of being his grandmother, untainted by betrayal. When it was time to leave, Leo hugged me tightly. "Are you okay living without Grandpa Arthur and my parents?" he asked. "I will be fine," I said, truth resonating in my voice. "Better than I've been in years." Back in my hotel room, I finalized the last legal documents with Mr. Harper. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Completely sure," I replied. For the first time in months, I had control, clarity, and purpose. 6 months later, I sit on the patio of my new home, a cozy 2-bedroom on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a flourishing garden. Bees hum among red roses, birds sing, and the quiet fills me with a peace I hadn't known in years. The mining rights sale brought $4.2 million, exceeding even Jonathan's estimate. But the true satisfaction lay in knowing Emily could never touch a cent. The trial concluded last week. Emily was sentenced to 12 years for elder abandonment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted homicide by negligence. Brian received a slightly lighter sentence as an accomplice. Justice had been served, and I could finally begin to live again. Brian received 8 years for his role as an accomplice. Their attorneys tried to argue that financial desperation had driven them, but the evidence, recordings, documents, and the clear premeditation, was overwhelming. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the sentences aloud. "In my 30 years on the bench," he said, his voice stern and unyielding, "I have rarely seen such calculated betrayal within a family. Elder abuse is a grave offense, but when committed by one's own children, it violates the most sacred bonds of trust and love." Emily cried openly, her sobs echoing in the room, but they no longer held sway over me. Justice had been served. Leo visits me every Sunday, and under the care of Susan and Richard, he is thriving. His grades are steadily improving, he has made friends, and he has begun piano lessons with a teacher I found for him. More importantly, he is developing a sense of morality, fairness, and responsibility, lessons his parents never prioritized. "Grandma," he asked one Sunday, as we planted sunflower seeds in my garden, "do you think I'll ever be able to forgive Mom and Dad for what they did to you?" His insight surprised me for an 8-year-old. "Forgiveness is a choice, honey," I said carefully, taking his small hand in mine. "You don't have to forgive them to be happy, and you don't have to hate them to protect yourself. What matters is that you grow into a good, kind, fair person, regardless of what they did." I added gently, "And remember, forgiving doesn't mean letting anyone hurt you again." Susan later told me that Leo occasionally asks about his parents, but he has never expressed a desire to visit them in prison. He seems to understand in his own childlike way that their actions were wrong, and he is far more content and secure now than he was living under their financial and emotional chaos. My days now carry a rhythm of calm and purpose. I wake early, brew coffee in my sunlit kitchen, and spend hours tending my garden. In the afternoons, I read books I had long wanted to explore. Evenings are often spent walking through the town, greeting neighbors who have become friends over time. Mrs. Grace, who lives next door, has become a particularly close companion. A widow like me, she and I share stories of our late husbands while enjoying tea in the afternoons. One day, she asked, "Don't you feel lonely without family around?" "Grace," I replied, "I've learned that solitude is better than being surrounded by people who wished me harm. And besides, Leo is all the family I need now." It was entirely true. Removing toxic people from my life had enhanced the quality of my relationships immeasurably. I have used portions of the inheritance in ways that would have enraged Emily. I donated $500,000 to a shelter for women escaping domestic abuse, $300,000 to organizations protecting seniors from family exploitation, and $100,000 to Leo's school to improve their arts and music programs. Each donation bears a small plaque in honor of Jonathan, who had protected me even in death. Mr. Harper, more than a lawyer, has become a friend and confidant. We meet weekly for lunch, discussing everything from legal updates to life's small pleasures. You know the irony? He asked during one lunch. What? I replied, though I could guess. Emily and Brian could have inherited a substantial portion eventually. Jonathan's will would have ensured they were provided for. But their greed and impatience cost them everything, and landed them in prison. It was a truth that brought a grim satisfaction. If Emily had simply been patient and loving, she might have inherited $1 million years from now. Instead, her attempt to hasten my death for $4 million destroyed her future entirely. What pleases me most, however, is not their punishment, but the transformation in myself. The woman I was 6 months ago, vulnerable, fearful, manipulable, is gone. In her place stands a strong, independent woman who will never allow anyone to exploit her kindness again. Last night, I sat on my patio and gazed at the stars. I thought of Jonathan and whispered, "Thank you for protecting me, even when you were no longer here to do it yourself." This morning, a letter arrived from Emily in prison, her first attempt to contact me since the trial. Mr. Harper had advised against opening it, warning that it would be manipulative, designed to provoke guilt or false remorse. After deliberation, I decided to read it. As expected, the letter was filled with excuses, rationalizations, and pleas for forgiveness. "I know I made terrible mistakes," she wrote, "but I am still your daughter, and I hope someday you can forgive me." I walked to the fireplace and burned the letter, watching the paper curl into ash. I felt profound peace, not because I forgave her, but because I finally accepted that the daughter I had loved no longer existed. Tomorrow is Leo's 9th birthday. We are planning a small celebration in my garden with Susan, Richard, Grace, and a few of his school friends. It will be my first genuine family gathering since Jonathan passed, a day of love, warmth, and laughter, not manipulation or deceit. In the end, Emily and Brian got exactly what they deserved. I am living a new life, far from the shadows of betrayal, in a place of safety and serenity. And this life, my life, is the result of resilience, courage, and vigilance, not the tragedy Emily had planned. For the first time in decades, I am wholly, unshakably free.